Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we put the business back in lady business. Hosted by Jennifer Justice, founder and CEO of the Justice Department, a management strategy and law firm that works with female and woke male entrepreneurs, executives, talent, brands, and creatives to build and maximize their wealth, focusing in the areas of tech, consumer product, finance, media, entertainment, and fashion. Jennifer interviews entrepreneurial women who have done it all, who will be sharing their secrets on all things business, especially as a woman. These highly successful women will share strategies and insights, including what not to do and what it takes to win. And now, here's your host, Jennifer Justice.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. Today, we have the fabulous Shira Lazar, a multi-hyphenate, personality, host, content creator, but founder and CEO of What's Trending, which I'm sure most of you know her for. And she just started a new company we're going to hear about called, what is it called?
PeaceInside.Live.
Inside, about wellness and Web3. And so we're going to get started with all of it. First, hi, how are you?
I'm good. It's the beginning of the week, even though I don't know when this is going up or if you are listening. So it's that, beginning of the week energy during the holidays. You know what that is?
Yeah.
It's like that excitement, end of year,
I know, everybody's like, I can't wait, just trying to get it all done. Yeah.
Exactly. There's also a feeling of like your schedule is a bit different, right? You're giving a little space for fun times, hanging out with your friends and family and loved ones. So I'm feeling a bit of all of that, but it's really an honor to be here with you for your podcast. I really look up to you and what you've done, what you continue to do. So it's so great in this space. I feel like every day I am so inspired by just incredible people, including women.
Yeah. No, I hear you. So, and yeah, there's a big group. I mean, we're part of one with the Wink, like WhatsApp group, which is amazing. But let's talk a little bit about what's trending. So for those people who don't know what it is and what you're doing, give us a little background.
Yeah, What's Trending is a digital publisher. We cover social media trends and digital culture. We started out over a decade ago in the Web 2 era. So we came up when the creator economy was coming up, and we were one of the first to cover influencers and editorialize the social media water cooler space, and got nominated for an Emmy, won multiple awards. It shifted from a live stream show to more of a digital content publisher over the past decade, where it's, first it started out as a show with me, What's Trending with Shira Lazar, but then expanded more into a brand. We have obviously different people that work for the brand, different personalities. And after many years of overseeing it, I was able to kind of step away and start working on some other stuff. I have a wonderful person, Andy Lalwani, who oversees it day to day. And for me, if it wasn't going to get, or it's not acquired yet, I needed a way to continue exploring my passions while having the company.
Yeah.
And I really feel proud that I've been able to do that. But yeah, that's What's Trending. You can find us everywhere. We create content daily. We're obviously online, on social media. I own at What's Trending everywhere, whatstrending.com. And you can find us on gas stations. We do a lot of out of home as well. So airports, colleges, nail salons.
Yeah.
We're also on fast channels. And so I like to say I want people to bump into our brand serendipitously, everywhere. And it's definitely for people that care about this culture, and it's broadcast by people that care about it. So there's definitely an authenticity there.
Yeah, for sure. So I think a lot of people have heard about Web3. A lot of people have heard about this big, FTX situation, crypto winter, NFTs not doing so well. I mean, given that this is mostly women too, who, we have a lot of things going on and not as much time. Like, what is trending in Web3 right now?
Not as much time, not as much money, right?
Yeah,
like
not as much time, not as much money.
We know about the female tax. Like, there's a reason why, besides just the patriarchy,
Yeah.
And us just not being educated in certain fields, not seeing ourselves in certain fields. There's a reason why we aren't in those fields. But then there's the reality that we spend our money differently. We use our time differently. That said, it doesn't mean that we should be cut out of these spaces. And I think that a lot of us are trying to continue to pave the way, because we're not necessarily the first, but continue to say, we deserve to be here. We deserve to create the way we want to create. It might not be the same way as others, whatever that means, whether it be gender or race or sexual orientation, like however we identify as a woman, we get to figure out what that means to us and our truth in these innovative spaces that are shifting culture and creativity and tech and financial systems.
Right.
And so that's what for me is really exciting. And I think that you don't need to be a techie or an engineer to be that, right? You could come from other spaces and other industries. I think that the first thing is just I think even going to events or going into virtual communities and Twitter and seeing the people, not just the headlines, makes such a difference. Because I think when you meet people, when you hear people's stories, when you actually understand what other people are building outside of the platforms that you're hearing about or leaders you're hearing about that you don't identify with, that have been scams and frauds, you could actually see something bigger, right? And then you could feel the energy and connect with the human elements and the cultural elements of what's happening here. So that for me is what is exciting, as a woman in this space, or just as someone who's been a trend forecaster. It's not just the crypto side of things. Like you have to see beyond that, but it's hard to, right? When it's just in your face. It's interesting. Brian Fanzo, Social Fans, he's amazing. He minted an NFT every single day for 365 days. He has a podcast called NFT 365. We did a Twitter Spaces today, and we were talking about culture 3.0, the future of culture, right? And Web3, et cetera. But he said the biggest worry he had was that Web3 was going to be first popularized by crypto.
Right.
And that was the case, because whenever you have money in financial systems, there's always a lot of shit that happens.
True.
And I think he felt, and he knew if this was going to be used as the example of blockchain in the use case, there was going to be a lot of issues to that. And we see that right now. And then that becomes a barrier for entry and a huge obstacle, including when those systems collapse or when it doesn't feel safe, right? Yeah. Safety is a huge concern. And then it becomes a lack of accessibility, fear. And then, the media definitely latches on to that, as well as anyone who might not understand this space. So I think that's definitely what we're seeing right now, the long and short of that answer.
No, that's, a really good point, because there's more to Web3 than just crypto, right? It's like there's a metaverse, there's crypto, there's other ways that you can be a part of it.
Yeah, I say, because a lot of what I do is bridging the gap between Web 2 and Web 3, creating content that's accessible, informative, but entertaining and fun and more just conversational around the space. Because I'm not an expert, I'm an enthusiast and an advocate, and I like to learn out loud, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of what I do is sharing my journey and what I'm learning with you. So that said, everything in Web3 is based on blockchain tech, for those who might or might not know. And that encompasses crypto, that encompasses NFTs, metaverse, digital assets. But, it's going to hit industries like, obviously we've seen ticketing and arts, but medical, real estate, healthcare. So you just have to think of it beyond that. And as a foundational tech is what is disruptive and innovative. And there's a lot that emerges from that. And some of that might work and some of that might not. But now is the time to learn and connect and build those skills, because those will be invaluable, just like social media skills became invaluable. I remember when I was early in social, a lot of people didn't get it. They didn't get why I was on Twitter. why I was vlogging and blogging and building my own site and my own brand. You have to think about those days where you were making fun of people, and then you're like, oh, I wish I was early. I wish I got it earlier. Well, if you're hearing about this, it's like kind of a hint from the universe that there's something coming up. You have a chance. It doesn't mean you need to like dive in and make it your whole life, but just start learning.
Be curious.
Like, start poking around. Yeah, start being curious. Start meeting people. Start going beyond the headlines.
Right. And what do you think? Where's the place to do that? Where you're not just reading the headlines about crypto bros and, stealing your money.
Yes, appreciate that. Well, not to bring up some shameless plugs, but I think that a lot of what I do is attempting to do that. Twitter, I think, unfortunately, Elon is really making it difficult, but Twitter became the place where it's easy to discover and hear conversations that are happening, whether it be deeply technical or possibly surface level and educational, or fun and more like just talking about life, but yet that the life that intersects with Web3 in this space. And then you could go up and ask questions and you could speak to leaders in the space. It's free. It's basically like a free ticket to a conference that would typically cost a lot of money, but it's just
true.
So, but I do a podcast weekly called Inside Web3. It also airs as a radio show across California, in LA, in San Francisco, San Diego, Sacramento. And what I love about it, it's 27 minutes. Like when you take out the commercials and all that and you hear it as a podcast, and everyone has 27 minutes, 30 minutes. I find a lot of these other podcasts are like, you're like an hour and a half. And you're like, oh my God, who has that time? But we really break down the headlines. We bring on guests. These segments are like 5 to 8 minutes max. So it really gives you like a quick insight into what's happening that week. And I just feel like I learn a lot from it. And I know other people do. I also started a weekly newsletter for newbies and those who can't keep up. And some of my other content on my Instagram and Twitter. So I myself, I'm trying to do that because it is difficult. Yeah. So partially I'm like serving my own needs, but in hopes that it's going to help others as well, which, I know I'm not alone in all of that.
Well, no, I think it's good to have something that you can just go to and it's succinct and you're going to get like cliff notes and it's not just going to be because it's clickbait, and like spicy and somebody getting taken down. It's like
exactly
informative. Right. Exactly.
And we're part of a lot of other communities, and shout out to BFF who does some great work. That's the first place I also tell people if they're trying to get in this space. Bad Girls Club is Bad Girls, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Just making sure. Because I know there's someone else that has something. Sometimes you mix up the names. Bad Girls Club is doing great. I wanted to make sure.
Mavion is also.
Mavion, yes.
Yeah. All creating spaces.
It's not Bad Girls. Wait, it's not bad. It's, oh my God, why am I blanking on it? It's Boys Club.
I don't know which one you're talking about then.
Boys Club.
I know of my BFF and I know of Mavion, but I guess I don't know what this one is.
Check out Boys Club as well. They're doing similar things. They have also great community and newsletter. Again, can barely keep up and I'm in this space.
I know, that's just it. It's like what people think is they're too late. You're not too late. It's just things are happening really quickly to get to the things that will really matter. Like remember there was a Friendster before Facebook. There was MySpace. Like these things got huge and they went away,
but yet Jennifer, you bring something really great up. Like a lot of those founders, or some of them, went on to great companies and continue to be executives in the industry. So whether you're in something that unfortunately fails, the fact is it's that knowledge of a space and a system and a community that is important,
right? And taking that risk and that curiosity, which I would, and that's why I think it's so exciting that women are doing that in this space. Not everyone's going to win, but that's okay. Like taking that step is the most important, and getting in there and being curious, because we were left out of Web 1 and Web 2. Web 3 is a different situation. You see a lot more women in there, and not just women who are engineers, those are the only ones who really were winning before. And so this has just a much more broader entry points, and, we're using fashion and things that we're more interested in, community by nature, to get in, because there's just as much applicability. My 9-year-old twins, my boy and my girl, are both in the metaverse and Roblox constantly. My daughter more so than my son, and she loves it. But, her avatar literally looks like it's like Pong. You know what I mean? It's not avatar. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like, it doesn't flow like that. It's like boop, boop. It looks like a little weird robot. It's like we have a long.
It'll get there. It'll get there. I was just talking to Charlie Cohn, who is all about digital skins and outfitting yourself and your digital identity. And like, that is definitely part of the future as well. You bring up a really interesting point about, it's not just about successes. I think that we are so worried that something won't be a success that we obviously fail to start. And we don't follow our passions or our ideas because we're worried about like what it will end up like or how it will succeed. And that drives us so much that I think it drives us to not actually like start, but then also it becomes like a false way to drive us within the journey, right? Of actually building, because you're actually building from just like, I would say, not necessarily the best place. If you're just wanting to succeed, I think that you inherently succeed when you listen to your instincts and you try to do the best you can do and try to continue to elevate your own knowledge and skills and surround yourself with the best people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But it's not just monetary.
Yeah. If you're so like obsessed with succeeding, you might be building from not necessarily an organic, authentic place. And I feel like it actually is a place that isn't necessarily, foundationally strong.
Yeah.
And you also forget like that. And I was talking about this with my boyfriend yesterday, actually, because we were joking around about even like this idea of starting a cafe. Right. And I said, you know what? I feel like these days I'm just having so much fun starting things that are my ideas. Like the courage to just start is so huge. That's the success.
Yes.
Because we're always looking at like, well, will this work out? Well, what if that wasn't the point? What if it was the fact that you had the courage to even follow through with your vision?
Yeah.
Right. And like how beautiful that is in essence. And so like that excites me. I feel like when I look back at my year and I hope that other people reflect on this, I say, wow, I feel like this was a successful year, not because, my company made money or was profitable. That is really good. And I made money. Great. But also I followed through on my ideas. I actually had ideas and I decided to not wait for other people to make them happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't that so much more energizing? And then of course, yes, you want to make sure,
I mean, look, you're proud of yourself when you do these things and have
but I think we focus on like, how many times do you have like lists of like, well, they made this into a $10 million or X million dollar company or $1 billion or went public or raise money. All of that is difficult. So those people get to be applauded, but we forget, how much it just takes to build something, whether you have money or not, whether you see that it's going to be profitable or not.
Yeah. Look, I was just on a phone call with somebody who I've done a lot of angel investing in, and we were talking about a couple of different companies that are literally every single person knows the brand. Every single person knows these two brands. And neither of us has made any money off of them because they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars on paper. But when you're an initial investor, it doesn't mean you make any money on it, right? Okay, so you can applaud them all you want, but that does not mean that they're financially successful. It took a long time to get there. So we can applaud them and say they're financially, but they're not. Like, they're not either.
There's also this false sense, of success in that way, like on paper. Like those are things that a lot of people, like we know we talk about it, but a lot of people don't talk about it. It's like you might not be liquid, but on paper you're loaded and you're super rich. But what does that really mean, including during a recession or when you actually need to pay people and make sure people are taken care of that you work with? So like there's so many different, I don't know,
lots of nuance
ways of looking at success. And also it goes back to a more holistic perspective of like, are you happy? Do you enjoy doing this? Do you feel like in the seven habits of highly effective people, they talk about deposits and withdrawals that create relationships and trust. But I also think that applies to you.
Mm-hmm.
How many withdrawals are you taking out of yourself and how many deposits?
Yeah.
And that is really, that builds trust with yourself and worthiness, and also stops burnout. Because if you keep taking withdrawals out of yourself and you're not putting in the deposits, then like, how successful are you really? Like, I had one year, I had a 7-figure year with my company, What's Trending. We were working with a lot of brands, this, that. But at the end of the year, I was like, I feel like I did a lot, but I did nothing. And I felt like, well, how did I make a difference?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you need to understand what your values are and what success means to you. And so, yeah, like if it is just the profit line and margins and all that, great.
Yeah.
But if you feel like in you saying that there's something off and something missing, then I encourage you to reflect on what that is.
Yeah.
And it might be a hard journey, but it's worth it.
Yeah, seriously. Well, let's talk about some of those things that you did for yourself. You started another company as well.
Yes, Peace Inside. And that started also just from an idea of like two friends, me and my friends, loving talking about these juicy subjects of our well-being and mental health and wellness. And we started a video series after a life-changing trip to Everest Base Camp. We started a series called The Weekly Mind Shift, where we just like chat about stuff that we talk about behind closed doors. And she ended up leaving to go to Thailand before the pandemic, getting stuck there. And we ended up having this virtual retreat on Zoom. And this is before the Zoom burnout, and Zoom became, I guess, not something special, more commodified.
Right.
And it was amazing to see these virtual retreats where it's very deep and connected, how it worked. And it made such a difference for me. And so from this virtual retreat at the beginning of the pandemic, we started basically a virtual studio where we had 2 classes a day with facilitators from around the world. We just started it purely just like within weeks with a website and a Zoom account and donations. And we didn't even take anything. And then, after a year of doing that and having a few thousand people through our classes, we're like, okay, do we want to maybe build this more into a business or try to?
Right.
And we started approaching also companies that, both of us had worked with, because she had come from the agency world. She's a corporate coach as well and does corporate mindfulness. I had a lot of brand relationships. And so we started bringing wellness to companies like HBO and Capital One, Boys and Girls Club of America, and Spotify. And actually, that's what led us to the NFT space, where one of our friends who's in the space was like, could you do what you're doing for these companies with like an NFT project? Like, yeah, why not? So we started doing Discord wellness programming for an NFT called Dino Monks, which has since merged with Knights of Degen, and which is owned by Redbeard Ventures, which you might know, just to connect the dots. But so that was an amazing use case of like, wow, one, this community really needs it. There's a lot of FOMO, a lot of volatility, a lot of anxiety. And if we're building new paradigms, how do we integrate this in from the beginning versus having it as an add-on, like in previous settings and company cultures? And so with my own journey in Web3 and doubling down, I realized, wow, there could be a really great opportunity. And so, yeah, Peace Inside is doubling down, and we look at ourselves as, and not to get into too buzzwordy corporate mode, but like B2B to C. So we even found like we got burnt out and thinking always so much as a consumer facing company. Like even all the companies we know, like Calm and Headspace, like there's a lot of money spent on marketing, which makes sense. But then you spend so much money on marketing and time that you kind of miss out on time you could spend bringing these tools to people.
Yeah.
And so for me, there's so many communities already. Like I have my own community, but why not go to communities that are already there versus trying to build our own from scratch necessarily? And so we want to help Web3 communities and teams create more wellness. So we want to build customized wellness programs. We are doing this virtually and IRL, and also experiment with what's the tech around that as well. If people want more materials, if people want to interact and have more after the experience, like what do we give them? And so that's right now what we're doing and what we're building. We were at World Women Gala at our Basel. We created a wellness experience there. We're going to be producing a wellness track and experience for NFTLA. And so
what does that look like? What's the wellness experience look like? Like, what'd you just do? World Women?
Yeah. So, well, like we almost function as like a wellness agency or consultants. So we'll sit with founders and teams and say like, okay, what do you already have? What is the space? Like, what's your community? What does it look like? And where are you located? Like, where will this be? Because we want to make sure we're working with locals and vendors. We want to be more inclusive about it. We want to make sure like how we're approaching wellness is different than if it is a female community versus a bunch of dudes and DGens and crypto bros.
Right.
Like Knights of GGen, we're all like crypto bros. So we approached it more as mental fitness. So we're going in and almost creating like an RFP, but for wellness.
Right.
And depending on if you want it to be virtually, again, day to day, for your community. And it could be, once again, in a Discord chat, Twitter Spaces, it could be in the metaverse, or if you want it IRL at some of these events where we could have an experience. So you could have sound healing to breath work to meditation, or, we're also bringing in other community members and projects. We're having NFT galleries that involve mental health and wellness arts. So we're looking at in that way, it's very experiential, but it also it's curating where we're bringing in others who are building these communities as well.
Amazing. And you're doing that while also running around interviewing people and being like,
well, yes, I know. I need some wellness. Well, yeah, it's
I know.
Always, that's where it comes down to support. Yeah, I'm all about that. If you can have that, like I have someone that helps me with my social media, and we come up with ideas together. When I started looking at myself as a business as well, it allowed me to do more. Yeah. Again, only to go back to the 7 habits of highly effective people, because I'm literally listening to that right now. It talks about the difference between managers and producers will need 1 hour, in 1 hour, they could do that one thing. When you're a manager, you could do 10 hours of work in 1 hour. I'm more about figuring that out. That. And part of that is you're not going to do it alone. You
exactly. Not doing it alone, not doing it by yourself. Yeah.
So exactly. So how do you get people to support that? And you create workflows and structures. And I love that because, when I work with other people, they also give me perspective. They're learning a lot. They have their ear to the ground. Like it expands what you do. And so I really love that. Partially why I just want to make more money is so I could just hire more people and help more people.
Perfect. Yes, exactly.
Get people that are awesome at what they do, say like, I'll pay you to do that. And then everyone's happy.
Yeah. So in doing all of that and running it around, you have a lot going on, obviously. Wellness is an amazing space. I mean, my daughter, and my son, they love the fidget, all the fidget toys and spinner, it's so crazy how they're dealing with it so young now, and they know it. They call things, oh, these are satisfying, or listen to brown noise. And so it's a really important part of it, and taking care of yourself. What is it? That's depositing, is it not? Is that depositing?
Well, that's depositing. You're depositing something in you.
There you go.
Part of that is knowing how you work and what makes sense for you, right? Because what works for you might not work for you. And part of that is introspection. You need to give yourself time to understand what feels good and what feels right for you and your body. Of course, there's going to be challenges and anxious moments and all that. But I think in order to create sustainable spaces for all of us to work, you need to figure out and move towards what feels good. And that's hard because there could be things that seem very successful or societally, successful, but that don't feel good for you. And we have a hard time disconnecting that. So for me, I know maybe what I've done in the past or what my parents love or what I feel on paper seems really good might not feel right. Like being on the red carpet all the time for me when I was doing red carpet interviews, really cool. A lot of people thought it was really cool. Wasn't necessarily great on my nervous system.
Right. No.
There's a time and place for that.
Very well. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. There's a time and place for that. But then, I realized maybe this isn't necessarily where I thrive, right? Like I'll take a job if it's maybe good and high profile, but I might not be the best at this. Like maybe it's time to shift towards something that feels better. Relationships, it's the same thing. A lot of times we date or hang out with people that on paper make sense, but you know, you feel that anxiety every time you're with them, you leave.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that to yourself? Your body is telling you something in terms
Yeah.
of that alignment.
So
I think the more we understand what feels good to us, the more we end up doing what aligns with us. And actually we could expand what we're doing. And then of course, from there, you could then say, okay, this makes sense for me. Now I want to get support. And then you could be a better leader as well, because it feels more authentic to you and people are more enrolled in your vision.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Look, I mean, it's so amazing because we started like here talking about Web3 and now it's just
I always end up veering off. I say like Web3 is the entryway, and then there's like all the real juicy stuff. Like all that stuff never changes, by the way. When we talk about innovation, all that, like that is great. That is what we do. That's an expression of us. But if we don't know who we are in that, all of that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm definitely you could say like, I see the interest and I see how people love this space, but I guess my secret sauce and what I'm trying to really help people and myself is just how do we live better lives and how do we love ourselves and others more?
Yeah, no, it's like how do we live like authentic lives and be successful, because you can make money. And look, you know what, money does not buy happiness, but it definitely buys unhappiness when you don't have it. And
let's be clear, and it's a privilege to be able to say money doesn't buy happiness. Like for me, you need your basics.
Yeah,
you need to have food, you need to have a home, like education, you know, sometimes in certain cities, transportation. Like, let's be clear, when you have the basics, you can thrive.
Yeah.
And so I've been in situations, and I still come from privilege, where I definitely have had moments where I couldn't pay rent, where I was in debt. And that not only sucked, actually created major mental health issues, and they are directly connected.
Yeah.
And so the more we can be clear about that for ourselves and others, and like work on our mental health while working on our ability to manifest our abundance or know we're worthy of that, that creates, I think, a really beautiful self-sustaining life. It's not one or the other. One kind of fuels the other, but it doesn't mean it doesn't make the other. Of course, if you have all that without the other side, you could say you could have everything and not care and still be a shitty person, or still still be unhappy.
Totally. Look, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I always ask people, you've given us all this great advice, but what's the worst advice that you've ever received?
I think that just inherently, that how I was feeling, how I was thinking, and that my idea is that I shouldn't trust them and ask for other people's opinions.
Yeah.
I think that the idea of self-trust is really important to living out your dreams and being your best self. I also think that getting so many opinions can really hurt you, not necessarily help you, because you stop really being clear about who you are in all of it. Yeah. So I think this idea of like, why don't you get more opinions? Why don't you ask more people? It depends who, but like a lot of times that actually will make you more lost than
you'll doubt yourself. You're like, wait, I never thought. Okay. Yes.
So just take that with a grain of salt. Take everyone's opinions with a grain of salt.
And think about who's giving you the advice. Have they ever been in your shoes? Do they know exactly who you are?
Do they do things that you look up to? Yeah, exactly. Are they killing it? Are they living a life that you aspire to?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you might want to listen. If not, you just like exactly be aware of that, and be aware of why you want everyone else's opinions before you trust your own.
Yeah.
Like at what point? Yeah. At what point, like, is it more about validation than actually getting other insight?
I agree.
And why do you need all that validation?
Right.
So that's more of a thought and a concept than someone's worst advice. But I definitely think this idea of just, you know, I would have ideas and thoughts and ways I wanted to do things, and just like, are you sure about that? maybe you need this first.
Yeah.
Maybe you need that first, instead of just like, no, you deserve that. Let me know how I could support you. Here are the babies. That is positive, productive insight versus making you question yourself more, thinking you need something outside of you before getting that, thinking that you actually can't do that. Those people, you might want to avoid or take it with a grain of salt.
Totally. Thank you so much. We've already talked about where we find you on what's trending, what's trending.com, what's trending everywhere.
Yeah. And at Shira Lazar as well.
And what about with Peace Inside? Same?
At PeaceInside.Live.
Love it. Thank you so much for being here today. I so appreciate it. Everyone listening, I'm sure you learned a lot. And thank you for listening to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. Until next time, I'm Jennifer Justice.